Welcome back to a special edition of Plat Chat. We're here in the Philadelphia Fusion house talking about Philadelphia Fusion. Obviously, the greatest team in the Overwatch League for 2020. We left that spot above NYXL open for them.
Yeah, Shocks are 19th. We're putting Philly at number one.
All right. This team is an attempt at a superstar roster.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think they succeeded? Because you are battling against the San Francisco Shocks and the NYXLs of the world. This, in terms of their DPS lineup at the very least, is pretty stacked.
You know what I hate to say is because I hate agreeing with what Reddit says, but Sato is definitely the weakest link of this team because of how low he's been. I think that he gets overslammed, but if we're saying they're a championship caliber team, I think Sato is a question mark for me.
Well, so we'll get to that later. I think I have a pretty clarified opinion on this, and I think that it's a bit of a pendulum swing. So I think that at the start, he was just like, oh my God, he's this sick Winston player. He's going to come into the league.
Yeah.
And then he's sort of disappointed. And I think the pendulum swung so hard in one direction of him being so bad that now the pendulum is like swinging back, and the hype is like, oh, it's actually quite popular to quite like Sato and be like, yeah, it's actually people are hating on Sato, and it's actually not that bad.
I'm not a hipster. I have always been a Sato apologist all throughout the season.
Yeah, but I also think you're wrong.
Well, yeah, that's fair enough. You can think that I'm wrong. I'm just not a hipster. But here's why I kind of half agree. So when you look at Sato's kind of career, he got banned for 30 games straight, right? Which is an outrageous ban. That is longer than an entire season at the moment. Unbelievable. But he comes into the Philadelphia Fusion, and they actually have a lot of success. Like at the end of 2018, he comes in, he plays the Orisa for them, a role that he's not really known for. He's more known for his Winston, and he looks pretty competent. Like that was a good main tank performance throughout the whole of 2019. I think people look at his performance in the grand finals and like to laugh about that, but he also was part of that roster that got them to the grand finals, and clearly outperformed Fraggy for that role.
Yeah.
He comes into 2019. It's a GOATS meta. There's a lot of reliance on the main tank. And Philadelphia Fusion played a style which was like very all in and specifically crafted strats around Sato playing on Winston. When Sato was playing on Winston, they were like, those maps, like nobody could beat them on those maps. Like they were playing on like Rialto, and they were just fucking full holding people at the first corner, like repeatedly. And they would play on Volskaya. They were very good at the Volskaya A defense. So they had like a niche that worked. The rest of the time, they were just like poop. But I think so much of the Sato hate came from the fact that he would die first, because you're playing GOATs. The team was all over the place, and Sato goes in because their style is to play aggressive, and he just gets melted because the bubble isn't there, because their timings are wrong with the heal, this kind of stuff.
That's fair.
I don't think that Sato is just like a straight up moron inter. I think that he looked like it because you're playing GOATs, and if your team fucks up and you are trying to play some kind of structured style, your main tank is just going to get blown up.
But that also stems from you're playing a meta where Reinhardt is so important, and you don't have a main tank capable of saying, this is when I need my bubbles, this is when I need my armor packs, and instead you're relying on your brig like EQO to shot call for you. And it's like, no, Sato, you are the main tank in GOATS meta. You should be the guy swinging your dick around the corners and asking for bubbles and armor, and knowing the tempo and knowing how the pendulum swings with abilities, whatever. So I actually think that I want to put that blame on Sato, and maybe he's a good Winston, and maybe he's a decent wrecking ball, maybe he's a realized Ursa is really good, but I don't think he has the personality to be a really good main tank, and I think he's going to suffer in the long run. And if I'm saying, hey, I want to build a superstar roster and win a championship, I want a main tank that is very confident in his play and capable of making shot calls around his play.
I agree, and like that's the thing is, I think the whole way that Philly played accentuated Sato's issues. Like he was dying first, he was jumping in, and he wasn't getting the help. But
I was like, you're crafting strats around Winston.
And that shows how like poor they understood the meta, and that Sato isn't willing to be like, hey, I like need the help or need this. Otherwise, I'm just not going to fucking do it, because like that needs to be what a main tank says, because what they were doing obviously wasn't working. So he needs to do a better job of stepping up, and that's why I don't like him. I don't think he's actually just a dumb player that went in and didn't expect to die.
That I think most of the most of it comes from like countering the extremes. So a lot of people on Reddit just generally think that Sado is just like absolute trash tier.
Yeah.
I think he's at least average in the league.
He's better than Yakpun.
Yeah. I mean, it's just different worlds, isn't it? So that's the thing is like, yes, when you look at this roster, the concern definitely is Sado, because they only have one main tank. So if Sado isn't comfortable with how the team is playing, then that is a real struggle. And also because, all right, even if you believe in him a lot, there is still the potential that you were wrong and it ends up blowing up in your face. And all of this effort has been wasted.
I will say, if I was the GM or the coach of this team and we pick up a second main tank, I think it kills Sado. I think Sado goes like, shit, they picked up a replacement for me, and his confidence goes through the floor. Maybe, and it's ripped, dude. Like, he won't play again. But if you only have him as your only main tank going into a new season where he's been criticized so hard, I think that inspires some confidence in Sado, knowing like, my team is behind me, they trust in me, and that's going to help him go into the season.
I know that everyone in the Philadelphia management really does believe in Sado. Like, they think everyone on Reddit is a moron. And also, a bunch of other teams in the Overwatch League tried to get Sado in this offseason. Like, teams that were trying to make improvements were asking if Sado was available. Yeah. So the consensus among the people involved in the Overwatch League is that he's actually pretty decent.
Yeah, I could also see teams making a shit offer for him just to be like,
And like my thing becomes is, hey, let's say you wanted to get a backup for Sado. Who do you get?
Yeah, because it's
like
it is very hard.
When
I
knew Bumper, was it you who said that Bumper has a team? I thought it was Philly.
No. And also, that, as far as I'm aware, fell through.
Oh, wow.
So, does Tizzy have a team at this point as well, actually? I don't think
Tizzy has a team.
I think it got rumored or something, didn't it? I don't know. We'll have to look at that when we get to...
This is totally the team I could see Tizzy joining, like, in, mid
I think that would be a great pickup.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great pickup. I think
if Sado doesn't work out.
Yes. But even then, I think as long as you do it, at some point during the season and you give Sado his fair shot, if Sado has done well, then you can bring in a backup main tank and he won't feel threatened.
Yeah.
And if he's done badly, he'll understand and it won't even matter because you're going to play the other guy anyway. Now, outside of the Sado issue, if Sado ends up being perfectly average, how do you think the rest of this team looks?
So I mean, everyone loves the Poco, but I'm a bit concerned. I don't think
Poco ain't never playing on this team.
I don't care about Poco. We got Fury on this team.
Got Fury.
Oh yeah, sorry. Look, we've been recording for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain.
I mean, the star players here are Fury, Alarm, and then the fact that you've got
Carpe. See,
Carpe.
My thing is, I really like their support line. I think Funny Astro is like probably one of the best mechanically skilled Lucios. And I don't know what he's like on all these other ones, but he seems like a talented, smart guy. And on top of that, like, Alarm is just nutty. So that I like their support line. My question becomes, can Carpe and EQO go back to their former glory?
That's a huge question.
That's a huge... If this team's going to be a championship team, EQO and Carpe need to get back because both of them were pretty uninspiring last year. Obviously, we played Ghost for most of it, but even when we went back to DPS... nothing really stood out.
Nope.
Yeah, and I don't think they enjoyed playing Ghosts, and I think that was the biggest problem is that like they went to practice and they didn't enjoy it. Yeah. And you know this as well, Custa. Like if you go into practice and you're like, fuck, it's time to practice, I just want to go play Rust or whatever, then it's not gonna work out for you and you're not going to improve. So I think this team needs a new meta to sort of like inspire them and make them go win a championship. So I actually think that I actually really like this roster. I think a lot of people are actually selling them short. I think people haven't bought into the idea of them being a star team, but I think that they are really, really good. I love that they have a team identity. Like when I think about the Philadelphia Fusion, they have an identity, and I know what they're about, and I know what the atmosphere is like. I love that.
Pitch you this. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. Carpe and EQO, they pop off. They look incredible. Potentially the best DPS duo of 2018. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
They come into 2019, they don't look like it at all. Most people say stuff like they didn't enjoy the meta, it was a bad meta for them, the team itself, they lacked motivation. I think all of those are very reasonable reasons. What do you think about the idea that Carpe and EQO are just not as good anymore because so many other people have joined the league that are as good as them?
I heavily disagree with that.
You've got your DMs in the league. You've now got all of these like Sparkle Glisters, etc. The people that were added in 2019, a bunch of new rookies. Have they just slipped down the rankings in terms of DPS duo because new people have been added?
I mean, I think naturally they've slipped down the rankings, Carpe and EQO, because of their performance last year. And you have to look at that performance last year and be like, yeah, you were pretty garbage. And we won't rate you as high as some others. But I definitely still think they have the potential to be like a super sick DPS duo. And I love the additions around them to complement them more. And really? I think that...
I don't like their additions at all. I think Ivy didn't impress me at all from because he was from Toronto.
Okay,
right?
well, yes. I didn't mean.
Oh, you mean I was
support and tanks.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, that makes more sense. But I like the thing that I don't like about this is if Carpe and EQO fail, they don't have a backup. Like Ivy, unimpressed. I don't think Ivy would ever be better than EQO because he's the flex DPS, I believe, right? Yeah. And ChipSa is like the only here. I don't actually know if he's a meme or if he's just a streamer, but I assume he would play if Doomfist became meta.
That is their plan, yes. If Doomfist becomes meta, their plan is to try and play ChipSa.
But that's what I love about ChipSa. He's a meme, and I think it just helps the team.
But my argument becomes is I really don't like these like these people who are streamers coming in as personalities and they're a meme and that kind of stuff. It very heavily detracts from the team, and I think they also don't come in with the mindset. Chips is not coming in to be like, I want to be the number one Doomfist in this game, and I want to show that like I'm the best in the world. Yeah. And he doesn't want to do better for the team. The only thing he wants to prove is like, hey, I'm playing in the Overwatch League, and look, I'm fucking shit up on Doomfist. Like he doesn't. I don't think he actually cares, and that. Well, I hope he proves me wrong. And I obviously don't know the guy, but that's how I would assume he's
not going to scrim with them either. That's it. But I don't even think that. Like, will he even travel with them? Like, I don't think there's any reason for your streamer to travel with them.
Unless there is a Doomfist meta, I don't see why he should be part of it.
I don't think he's going to negatively affect the atmosphere, like, at all, because he is not, I think, going to be part of the atmosphere.
But let's say Doomfist meta does come. Do you think he will be a big asset for the team?
I actually think so.
Has he ever played contenders? Has he ever played in a team set environment?
But I don't think that matters. I think this roster is like, hey, if Doomfist becomes meta and they're like, hey, we need to play Doomfist, and they bring in ChipSa for like a day or two, and if he pops off like those 2 days, I think the roster would be like, holy shit, we're playing with ChipSa. This is hilarious. Like, and I think he will try hard.
This roster. I think he might work on this roster.
Also, I think that ChipSa's just knowledge of the hero might just help EQO get better at that hero.
That's true.
You don't necessarily have to field ChipSa for him to have a positive impact just in terms of Doomfist. I do think it is burning money to have him on the roster in the first place. But
I wonder how much do you think his contract was?
Well, it's probably low, I would imagine.
But if he's I know if I was a streamer of like his size, I'd be like, I want a lot of money because I'm going to lose a lot of money if I have to play. I'm going to lose a lot of money because you cannot stream and play at the same time.
I mean, how much money do you think he made from streaming?
I don't know how many average.
Let's say he had like
1K.
Let's say he had like 1,000 subs, maybe.
Seems reasonable.
But then what? You make 50K.
Okay, he does. I thought he was bigger than that. I thought
maybe he is. Maybe I'm underrating him. I don't know. I don't watch ChipSa.
I don't know either. Okay, but anyway, this team then.
Wait, who's Hisu?
Huh? Oh, Hisu is also DPS.
Right? March. That's not.
He is March. Okay, so he previously played for Runaway, and he was all right. Now the problem with Hisu, as far as I see it, is that I haven't really seen him across a range of different metas because we have just been plagued by goats for so long.
Yeah,
and that he was very much part of that.
It makes me feel better that they have another DPS sort of in the wings.
Yeah, I don't really see... It's more of like roster filler rather than... they are going to run Carpe and EQ if they can.
Yeah, I think they will. And that's the main thing.
But I don't see how... We talked about this with some other teams. I don't see how this team shits the bed as hard as other teams. And I think they're a reliable, good team. And if they're in playoffs, they could go far, and I'm scared.
I think if we end up overhyping Carpe and EQO, I think they'll be like...
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, if the next meta is like Orisa, Sigma, Doomfist, Reaper, then I think that
here's my worry for it. You look at this team on paper on Liquipedia and you think, there's a lot of names there. They've got options. This team has no options. Snillo is two-way, so he's not going to be playing with the team. If they have a problem with Carpe or EQO, I don't think they have an effective backup to be able to fill into that kind of level. You still do have Hisu and you have Ivy there, but I don't think they're going to be at the same kind of level.
No, Ivy is not that bad. He's not garbage. He's decent.
He's all right.
Average.
But for like a superstar team kind of level is what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody that can, get you there. And then, if anything happens to their support line, they've got nothing. To go from Alarm to Boombox is to throw your season away, essentially, I think. Because Boombox can have decent performances, but you're expecting Alarm to be like on fire. So if he ends up disappearing, they have no backup for Funny Astro.
But I don't think you can make that argument for every team, though, because then it just becomes mute.
But my issue with this team is that they really don't have that many people on their roster. They have ChipSa, and then they have Boombox and Poco, two players that are significantly worse than their counterpart. It's not like a lot of other teams where their backup is pretty close and you don't quite know which you're going to field. This is very clearly an A team and then some bench players that are going to just sit on the bench the entire time. And that worries me slightly.
But I don't think the bench is as bad as you're making it out to be. I'm like, your plan B is actually not... You're not... Like if you sub in Boombox, you say you're throwing your season away. I'm like, no, they're still like above average.
You're throwing your championship opportunities away.
Sure.
That's what I meant.
I think that's the difference that we have is like I agree with Sideshow that this is a championship quality caliber team, but it's not like NYXL where you're like, well, we're just throwing this guy and we're set.
Or the Shock where you're confident with them fielding anybody because they've got such a deep... Or even Atlanta where you're like... Okay, you've got some question marks about the tanks and maybe supports. Who knows what they're going to pick up. But at least with their DPS, they've got a lot of options for a lot of different stuff. This team really just has one set 6-man roster that is a lot better than their bench players.
That's fair. But I really like the 6-man roster. That's fair, but I almost like the 6-man roster more than I like some of the teams you mentioned.
I agree.
But when it comes to the bench, then
I like the 6-man roster here potentially more than I like even like Atlanta's. But I feel more confident about Atlanta.
I think my biggest question mark with the 6-player team that we have would be EQO.
Yeah.
I think EQO hit his stride in 2018 season. His aggressive style on Junkrat, Hanzo, and all that kind of stuff really thrived. But are we ever going to see a situation like that where he's going to be able to step up and have that aggression? As you said, maybe he's kept rising with everyone, but the reason EQO and Carpe were so good is because they were unparalleled, really.
Yes.
But there are a lot of parallel DPS duos now. So
which was my point,
is EQO going to be able to do what he used to do? Like I remember he used to literally Junkrat mine into your entire team and then just hope that people didn't hit a shot.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to be able to do that again?
All right, let's go to the over-under. How did they perform last
season? They went 15 and 13. I think that's an over.
I think it's an over.
Yeah, definitely.
Over.
I think they had a poor season last year anyway. Goats didn't fit them, this kind of stuff. They should be over.
So where are we going to put them, though?
I want to put them like 6.
I want to put them 6th as well. Yeah, I think that they are just behind Atlanta for me. I think they have shots of being in the top 3, honestly, if everything works out. But there are question marks in terms of how it will work out.
If things go right, I could even see them win the title. But it's only like a 10-15% chance.
Like
maybe.
the 2018 season.
Yeah, I think so. There are other teams like the Charge, like Shock, like Shanghai, that could potentially fill up that top 6 as well.
Yeah.
You think Charge?
I am bullish on the Charge. I mean, do we want to get to them in the next video? I'm ready.
You're ready. You're raring to go. Well, they're coming up soon.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. They're coming up fairly soon. Happens. Well, we've still got the Washington Justice to talk about in the Atlantic Division, and then we're going to move on to the Pacific. So we'll see you for the next episode.